Hi, folks. My name is Girish Bali, the host for Back to Basics, another Back to Basics for another week for season 3. Today, we're going to speak with Diana Costas, and we're going to find out why did she create this book called How Spiritually Saved My Life. Now, people go through different stages of life, and we're going to find out as to why and what she's gone through in order to create this book. And we've been friends offline also, and we've been chit chatting, and we've been understanding each other as to why did she create it and all that fun stuff. And I want you guys to go and listen to it today. But there's one thing that we're gonna definitely have is talk in basic, and that's what we're gonna do today in a basic way, in a simple way. And plus, she also has a podcast, so we're gonna go and talk about all that. Let's go and speak with Diana on the episode today. Take care. Hi, folks. My name is Girish Belli, as I said on my introduction, but thank you again for coming to Back to Basics. We were chatting on the introduction and we said that we're going to talk about spiritual stuff and we're going to talk about life. But there's one thing that we just don't talk about enough is us. And today that's what we're going to be doing. And we're going to find out as to what the details are about this book. And as I said earlier in the introduction, so why don't we talk to our guest, as I said, and her name is Diana, and we're going to find out exactly who she is and what she is and why she is. So let's bring her on. Diana, how are you? And thanks for coming to Back to Basics.
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on here.
No, absolutely. It's definitely my pleasure. And nobody knows this, and only me and Diana knows this, that I've been trying to get her since season 2, and she has a lot of stuff going on.
Oh,
And
yeah.
finally she's here on season 3. So thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a really exciting journey, to put
Yeah,
it simply. It's been rough, it's been real, but I'm glad to have survived, and I'm able to now share my story in the hopes of helping others.
of course, of course. Yeah, Diana,
Mhm.
we're going to get into that. But before we start there, you know what I'm going to be asking, and this is what we always ask before the show starts, is what does back to basic mean to you?
Living as simply as possible,
Hmm.
not going beyond my means, and being okay with that.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, thank you again. You and I we were chatting right before the call, and you really got excited for being here and explaining all what the back to basics means to you, and we're gonna get into that later. But Diana, let me ask you this: some people they come up with a title first, a story first, um, maybe a design first, because it really depends on how they start a book, right? So where did this start for you? I mean, out of the 3 options that I gave, which one started first?
When it comes to the book, what started first was really how my life was going. I felt like it was ending, and
Mm,
I had to put something out there,
mm,
kind of like to speak to the world.
mm,
If I can come out of dark times with grace, I would hope to inspire others, you know? So that's
mm.
kind of what made me put this book out.
Yeah, yeah. So can we explain as to what the details are, if you don't mind, and the darkness that you just explained on?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we're getting ready to celebrate 2 years of wellness, 2 years of no drinking, no dating. And I am a survivor from a lifetime of sadness, to be honest.
Mm,
My father was murdered 39 years ago, and it's going to be 2 years that we solved this mystery.
mm,
And 39 years ago, I was only about one and a half. So I have not many memories of my father.
mm,
And to learn the truth about what happened to him was heartbreaking, to say the least. But
mm,
I knew that due to this murder, I had to make a difference. I had to change my life.
mm.
I didn't want to take the risk of my own children walking in my path.
Of course.
And what is that? From a high school dropout to, you know, ecstasy to so much just darkness.
Mm,
And thankfully in 2017 I was baptized, and that kind of was the beginning for me.
mm. Yeah, thank you again. But uh, and sorry for the loss, and it's just not, it's not very cool to go through that, but it is a part
Hmm.
of life that someone has to go through that, and I'm sorry that you have to go through that.
Yeah.
So
Coming
let me
from Sorry, coming
no, no,
from
no,
the inner
please.
city, we normalize these kinds of crimes. We okay this, and I'm here to say, this is not okay. So
Hmm,
we have to speak on murders. We have
hmm,
to speak on crimes. We have to speak. We have to speak up, you
hmm.
know.
Yeah, I mean, yes, you are right, and yes, you are right that we don't talk about it.
Yeah.
But we should talk about it, and it's a very, very ugly subject to talk about, but it needs to be, right? I mean,
Mhm.
so we're not going to get into details. If you want to talk about it, that's okay, because I know it's a very, very sensitive topic, and I want people to go and read the book also at the same time. And
Yeah.
I'm going to grab that book from you also for sure. Um, but I'm going to go and read that too. But
Thank you.
let me ask you this here: after the fact, when it happened, you just said that you don't remember, but do you have a feeling of what that felt like?
Oh yeah, absolutely. When I learned the news of what actually happened to my father, I decided to pay my respects to the location of the murder. And when I got there, all these childhood memories came up.
Hmm.
And so that triggered a whole story, in it of itself.
Hmm.
And so I have small memories, not of my father, but definitely of the location and things like that. This is where I'm grateful to be a writer, because this is we're talking early 80s organized crime in New York City. So it's very much along those lines. That's It was orchestrated and things like that. And I just happen to be a victim of this whole ordeal. And
Hmm.
kids come up, especially from the inner city like me, we come up into thinking that gangs and gangsters are cool and things, but we don't look at the tragedy that the children who suffer, we don't look at that part. And so in sharing my story, I want to teach that we can come out of darkness, out of the inner city with grace. You
Hmm.
don't have to live that life of crime.
Hmm.
Why? Because ultimately children are the ones who suffer,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know?
Thank you again for that. When people they go through this darkness and this black hole, you want to call it, or the rapid hole, depending on whatever word you want to use, people they don't come out of that. But
Right.
what made you come out of that rabbit hole?
With my children.
Okay.
In my family, personally, I had already dealt with this murder, and I had gone into therapy and things.
Hmm.
But I've experienced suicide, and I just felt like, no, I can't continue down that path. I have to do something different. And
Hmm.
that meant stopping everything. I even had to stop working just because my life matters. The
Hmm.
quality of my life matters, and it's not defined by my job.
Hmm.
So I had to take like a complete mental health check and stay home,
Hmm.
and I wrote during that time.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you again for explaining that, because some people they don't come out of that black hole, and then I
Mhm.
think your kids kind of helped you. And there's a lot of people who go into the rabbit holes and they still have kids, but they still don't come out of it. And
Right.
I think there had to be some sparkle or some trigger that said that you needed to be on the other side instead of the dark side. Am I right?
Yeah, I see my children, and I'm very much into ancestor veneration, and I'm just here to make my elders proud. And that lifetime of sadness and trauma, no, I said no, no way, Jose, to that. And I created a new path that's centered around self-care and really respecting myself,
mm,
you know, as to be the example for little girls, especially my daughter,
mm,
and things like that. I just can't, I cannot fail my children. That was my mentality through this whole thing. I
mm.
cannot fail my children. So I
Yeah.
had to create boundaries and things like that, all around, centered around spirituality, because man has failed me. My mother failed, my parents failed me, but God never failed me. My
Mm,
messengers never failed me.
mm,
So I just decided a different path, you
mm,
know. These
yeah.
generational cycles of the past no longer work,
Mm,
and I created a new one, and I'm very proud.
yeah. Thank you again for that. And definitely, I did mention this in season one and season two that many times in different episodes, and you must have heard most of them. You know, I lost my dad in 2009. There's no comparison as to what you have gone through and what I've gone through. But the question is that losing someone is not easy.
No.
So I definitely feel your pain when you were talking about this. So thank you again, and I'm sorry for the loss. So is there a difference between spiritual and religion for you?
Yes, very different.
Okay.
To be spiritual is more of a leadership quality. Religion is you're following a set of rules.
Mm,
And not that I have a problem with that. It's just that for me personally, I have witnessed a lot of people fail. And currently, I'm studying a lot of religions
mm,
to try to figure out where are these mistakes happening, because we're raising children this way.
mm,
And if I could help fix some of these things that I have found, you know, historically with religion that I don't agree with, if
mm,
I could help in some way,
mm,
because the thing is, the deal, my thing is this: I don't want to stray away from Jesus or anything like that,
mm,
but I want to make sure that we're teaching our kids the right way.
mm,
I'm not about manipulation or conforming.
mm.
And religion kind of, you have to conform to an extent. Spirituality is all are welcome.
Yeah. Thank you again for that. And I want people to understand that we're not here to bash spiritual. We're not here to bash religion. We're trying to understand from how Diana sees these
Right.
two worlds and these two lives, right? So we're gonna go and dissect that if that's okay with everybody. And I don't want anyone to think that we're just saying anything bad or anything about that for any religion, because that's just not what we do here in this show. But Diane, let me ask you this, and there's a reason why I asked you this question. Because on your book cover, you have a title called "How Spiritually Saved My Life." But
Hmm.
in that cover, you also have religion, symbols on there, and plus, I guess, clouds, which is spiritual. So, what was the thought process of that? Because they're two different realms, aren't they?
Yes. So I decided to dive the way that I was let down nearly 2 years ago by almost everyone in my own family. I decided to dive deep into religion, sort of like dissecting the Bible, and I lean on the Quran as my first go-to book. The Torah is a close second. So religion, I'm still very much a religious person. I was baptized in a non-denominational church that's Bible-based, Faith Church in Connecticut, and it's just, I love to study everything, everything. I combine spirituality and religion, and it works for me. It works. You know, I cannot say that the Bible worked for me due to my life, but
Mm,
it may work for you. Who
mm,
knows?
mm.
That's just the way I see it. I welcome all, so long as it's true and loving and things like that.
Yeah. Diana. Thank you again for that. You know, what is what is that one question that you had that it gave you an answer?
Well, the truth is, the question that I had was, how come bad people go to church? And it's not that bad people go to church. There's bad people everywhere.
Hmm.
It's just that not everyone who goes to church is saved.
Hmm.
So that's something to keep in mind when you want to go to the house of the Lord.
Hmm.
Especially us folks here in the inner city, we tend to follow someone because they go to church,
Hmm.
but I happen to be let down by someone who went to church.
Hmm.
So I have to sort of investigate for myself. And that's where I encourage people to pick up books.
Hmm.
My thing was the way I was let down was I couldn't believe it was all due to a lack of knowledge.
Hmm.
If we simply just picked up a book, the world, I think, would be much better,
Sure. Sure.
you know?
Yeah. Thank you again for that. You know, um, I think it was season one. I came and interviewed this person who interviews prisoners
Okay.
in jail, and when they come out of jail, um, they don't get a job because we people, society, think that they're still bad people, even
Mhm.
though that they have done their sentence, they're done whatever they can, they have changed their lives many different ways. So this person has actually um, wrote a story about them and to give it to the employer saying that he's a good person after so many months and whatever studies. So that's a 2 cents from there. But what is your thoughts when they people they have done their dues and their diligence coming out of jail? And there's no right and wrong answer, Diana. I wanted to ask you because I think this is something very similar. So I wanted
Right.
to ask you: do you think they're bad people, or do you think that we have changed them? When say we, I mean, they have done their diligence on their sentences.
The amount of opinions and judgment that we cast on others is unreal.
Hmm.
And you would think that someone who just served their sentence should be forgiven, right? But
Hmm.
sadly that's not the case. We continue to condemn them.
Hmm.
Like sadly what happened to me.
Hmm.
I got baptized. I went back to school. I got on the dean's list at Berkeley College. I have a lot of years in management experience in New York City.
Hmm.
And that still wasn't that's not enough to some folks.
Hmm.
I was still looked down upon as this loser because I lost one job.
Hmm.
All of a sudden my past started haunting me,
Hmm.
and it's like I I have to remain focused on my goals and know that as long as I know I am forgiven, I'm not here for what they have to say or what they have to think. It's
Hmm.
sad that we live in that kind of world that
Hmm.
even though I paid my dues, people would still continue to judge me, but that's just the way it is. And historically, that's the way it has been,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know. But it's not going to stop me from moving forward.
No,
Absolutely.
no, of course
Absolutely
not. Of course not.
not.
I follow you on the social medias and in LinkedIn also, and even without me talking to you and just reading your post, that's a lot of great positive vibes that I'm getting from you.
Thank you. Yeah, I
So, so,
just
so
want to cheer up the community.
of course, and there's a reason why I use the word vibe, right? Because that's your name of your podcast.
Yeah.
So now the question is, where did that name came from? Is it just exactly what I said, or was it something else?
It's the energy that I it's a funny story how I created the name. Actually I lost it all. I moved up the ranks in hospitality, in management, to slowly lose it all. And I ended up in Section 8 as a receptionist. And it's just, I was thinking about my life, kind of like this gypsy. I've done it all. And some folks over at Section 8 were talking about the vibe. And I'm like, this sounds like my life. I have to use this name. And so last year we applied for the Vibe podcast to be trademarked. We have grown since to more than just a podcast, so we're going to revisit the name,
Mm,
but that's what the vibe is all about. We can laugh, we can talk about music, talk about growing up in the inner city, talking about the island, to movies, so
Mm,
much spirituality. It's just an energy that I love. That's
mm,
the
mm.
vibe.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you again for that, and then thank you for the vibe, actually,
Thank you.
because I definitely sense a whole bunch of positivity coming out of the post that you give, and it's crazily loving. So thank you
Thank
again for
you.
that. So Diana, this is a new segment that I came up with for season three, and I've not done this before in season one and two, so this is something new. So it's a rapid fire for season three. So yeah,
Okay.
I'm going to give you some phase or maybe words, and I want to think as to what comes in your mind when this word comes in, and it could
Okay.
be a story, could be a sentence, could be anything. Okay, you ready?
Yep. Ready.
Awesome. Dark times,
Ooh, my past.
wellness,
Health comes first. Has to.
sadness,
Pain.
mm, writers,
Blessings.
crimes,
Happens, especially in New York.
yeah, NYC, which is New York City,
Yeah. That's my home away from home.
trauma,
Story of my life.
mm, spiritual,
That's who I am.
religion,
It's not for everyone.
mm, knowledge,
Definitely power.
bad people,
They're everywhere.
good people,
They're also everywhere.
vibe,
Energy.
hospitality,
That's a part of me, most definitely.
and the last one is Diana.
The powerful name my father gave me. Throughout this whole traumatic life, I've laughed a whole lot, and that's important to me. Very,
Mm,
very important. And
mm.
so he named me Diana, just like Wonder Woman. So
Nice, nice.
yeah,
Well, you're definitely a Wonder Woman for sure. After all the stuff that I've read about you and seen your post and what you are talking about today, so thank you again
thank
for
you.
that.
Thank you.
Is there a book? And this is a new segment also. And are you reading a book that really resonates with you? It doesn't have to be spiritual, religion, or it could be a really funny one that it just resonates with you.
Currently, I'm reading because I blog too, and I'm reading for two authors,
Mm,
and I believe her name is KJ Sutherland, The
okay.
Disappearing Dead. And
Okay.
that book is very nice. It's written journal style, and it's about the military and legal drama all over Europe. So that kind of reminds me of me and the
Mm.
story of my life. I happen to have gone to Germany, and I had some exciting times as well. I dated a veteran, long story. My father's a veteran. So it's just like, oh my God, I'm reading about myself.
Awesome. So I'm gonna go and search about that book and I'll how about exchange notes with you if that's okay with you?
Of course.
Okay. Thank you so much. And before you leave today, do you have any last words for all my Back to Basic listeners and my viewers, or how's your journey on Back to Basics too?
This has been an amazing experience. So I want to thank you for inviting me here. And I hope that in sharing my story, I just want to teach people that when you're going through dark times, there was times where I was just like falling to the ground crying, why is this happening to me? Why am I losing everything? Rather than focusing on that, let's think about perhaps I'm being prepared for something much greater.
Mm,
And sometimes you have to lose everything in order to start over. You
mm,
can't start over having everything.
mm.
So never look at a loss as a fail. Look at it as an opportunity to do better. and that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Diane, thank you. Thank you for coming on Back to Basics, and thank you again for sharing your story. And hopefully, you and I can be offline friends
Yeah.
and get to know each other better because you seem like a very viable person,
Thank you.
and with the vibes that I get from you, it's awesome. So thank you again for coming here.
Thank you so much for having me here. Thank you.
Thank you. So, guys, we spoke with Diana today and we talked about the basics of life and spiritual and religion. But there's one thing that I definitely learned from her, that never lose hope, always fight forward. And that's what we all do, don't we? Now, as usual, as always, there is a quote of the day from Back to Basics, and hopefully Diana will like my quote. The quote is, "Awakening is not changing who you are, but disregarding who you're not." Because you know what? We never really give ourselves a tap of the back and appreciate what we have, right? And that's what we're all trying to do here. Now, as usual, as always, what do we always say at the end of the episode? Everything in life goes back to basics, and that's what we did today, guys. Guys, take care, God bless, and I will see you next time on Back to Basics. Take care, God bless.
Good afternoon. My name is Diana, and I'm the host of the Vibe podcast and also the author of How Spirituality Saved My Life. What I enjoyed most about being a guest on Back to Basic Mode with Girish Bali was how comfortable I felt, really. There's a difference between interviewing someone and being interviewed. And I'm getting ready to celebrate 2 years of wellness, and I don't feel comfortable with everyone just yet after this experience that kind of the world has experienced within the last 2 years. We've all had to get used to a new normal, and feeling comfortable with someone speaking is very important to me. And also, my favorite part was the wordplay. That was a lot of fun. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And Girish Bali, thank you for asking me to join on your podcast. Peace.
Hi guys, thank you again for tuning in to Back to Basics and listening to the excellent episode that we had today with our guest. You know, with your love and support, we do need you to at least rate our show, review our show, because it does make us stronger day by day, week by week, as I usually say on my episodes. And there are 3 things in this episode that it makes a hit for me, which is the content, the guest, and definitely the host. So guys, take care, God bless, and remember, everything in life goes back to basics, and that's what we did today, guys. Guys, take care, God bless, and see you next time on Back to Basics.